Well, friends, today I am going to discuss with you the transactional analysis. This is one of the behavioral technique through which interpersonal behavior can be improved upon, can be made better. In transactional analysis, we try to see one-to-one relation and how to improve upon that one-to-one relation, because in day's routine, if you view the day's routine, then we generally are discussing things with one-to-one relations or in a paired manner with the people. Now, in transactional analysis, we try to cover this behavioral improvement in a way which I will be explaining you here. Now, I am showing you with this transparency transactional analysis. I will be covering during this session introduction, levels of self-awareness, ego states, life scripts, life positions, transactions, and stroking, psychological games, applications to transactional analysis. So these are the things we will be covering during this talk. Let us come to the definition part of it or the concept part, introduction. Definition of transactional analysis starts like this. Transactional analysis refers to analyzing and understanding interpersonal behavior, or transactional analysis offers a model of personality and dynamics of self and its relationship to others that makes a clear and meaningful discussion of behavior. This is dyadic relationship involving social transactions, that is stimulus and response model is applicable in this. You give some stimulus to someone, he responds in a particular way. Transactional analysis is an attempt to understand and improve such transactions. So there are some social transactions, there may be some financial transactions. So this we are dealing with the financial transactions. So this may not be misinterpreted as financial transaction. We are talking strictly here with the in context of the social transactions. Now, you might have seen a film also, and in that film you have seen the self-awareness or self-analysis and in that film it was very clearly mentioned that how the self behavior is divided into 4 quadrants. These 4 quadrants are open, blind, hidden, and unknown. This total behavior, self behavior, is called self-analysis and very well predicted through Johari window. And in that open quadrant means when we know certain information and others also know that. In blind, We may be blind to certain things, but others know that part of our behavior. Whereas in the hidden part, we generally keep certain things secret from others and we don't reveal it, but others will be not knowing it that way and we know the things. Fourthly, the unknown part of our behavior, that is unexploited part, which is neither known to us nor known to others. So it is always attempt should be to increase this portion, that is making the open quadrant much more broader than the other quadrants and making other quadrants smaller. So this is about the self-analysis. Now, in transactional analysis, this was a discovery of the Eric Berne, Dr. Eric Berne, who was a psychotherapist. And in Eric Berne's analysis, it was found that there are more than one person speaking from the same person. From within, 3 persons are speaking. So Eric Berne was a bit puzzled. He was a psychotherapist and seeing his patients, and he saw that there are 3 persons speaking from the same person. How it is happening, he was a bit puzzled, perplexed. Then he found that there are 3 ego states which are existing in the person's mind. And a person can use any of these 3 ego states, 3 patterns of behavior. Ego states means 3 patterns of behavior which he can use, any individual can use. Now, what are these 3 patterns of behavior that is depicted through this diagram? Nature of ego states. One is the nature of ego states: parent ego, adult ego, child ego. Parent ego state is that ego state or that pattern of behavior which is developed in the mind of the person due to the influence of the parents when he was a child. When the person was a child, then some parental images or certain people influenced his behavior, and those images remained in the mind and that got recorded in the mind of the person. Now, this ego state is emotionally significant ego state, that is emotional part of the human behavior. Second ego state is the adult ego state. Adult ego state is the rational part of the behavior and which develops over the time period when the person keeps on facing the world around him, then this ego state develops. But this is more adult type of behavior is exhibited. Other persons are treated as equals as compared to parent state, ego state, which uses other persons as non-equals. Rather, parent ego states treat other persons as child. Third ego state is the child ego state, which is the pattern of behavior which emerges due to the feeling of the child or feeling of the person when he was a child. When other people elders were telling him, don't do this, so he was feeling how and why he should not do it and how to avoid it. So he was only feeling it because that was before his social worth, because this transactional analysis is not related with the chronological age of the person, but he is, and this is more related with the psychological age of the person. So person may not be well matured in his later years of life also. So what to say of the child? So these are the 3 ego states which around which transactional analysis revolves. That is, a person has 3 patterns of behavior which he can use one at a time while transacting, while interacting with other people. and generally he uses one ego state at a time. But healthy people can move from one ego state to other ego state, but non-healthy people, abnormal people, won't be able to move from one ego state to other ego state, and they may be using only single or two ego states at a time of transactions. So this is ego states. Now coming to the further analysis of these ego states, how to identify the ego states, that which ego state the person who is communicating to you or with whom you are communicating, how to identify that which ego state he is using, which pattern of behavior he is using at that time, how to identify that, how to find that. For that, there are certain physical clues which find that which ego state the person is using during the time of communication. In the case of parent ego, there are certain characteristics like furrowed forehead, horrified looks, pursed lips, listening with tilted head, pointing index finger, arms folded across the chest or behind the back, or hands on the hips, puffed up postures, patting on the other's back, or likewise such like clues are available. That is, the person who is using the parent ego state, he is more dictatorial type. He treats other person as a child, and either he'll be keeping his hands like this, or he may be putting his hands like this while speaking. He is speaking like this, or puffed up postures might be like this. So he talks like that. You can identify that this person is speaking from the parent ego state and he is treating me as a child. Other ego state, if we take the other ego state, adult ego state, what are the physical characteristics or features which can identify it? Eyes looking straight and direct at the persons with whom you are talking. You directly look to the person's eyes. Then face straight forward without tilting. So he doesn't tilt the face or puffed up. The face is not puffed up like this. He directly stands in a right posture as such. Then attitude of listening and affirmative responses. He has the attitude of listening to other people. He keeps on listening and then he responds to the thing which he is telling, the other person is telling, with whom you are communicating. So this is the adult. So adult, as I told you, adult ego state or this pattern of behavior is always a desirable part of the behavior. This is the part of behavior we have to pose to the others, or the right persons will pose this type of behavior. They will generally try to speak from the adult ego state rather than using child or parent ego state. So it is always desirable that we use the parent ego state. Now child ego state is the third ego state or the pattern of behavior when the person behaves in a childlike manner. There may be two types of childlike behavior. It may be child who is adapted child or child who is natural child. You might have seen some children crossing the road when there is some dirt on the road. Then they may fold their clothes like this and then pass through it, because they have been inhibited by the parents so many times that don't spoil the clothes, otherwise you will be getting a thrashing or beating. So they are getting always a scolding for that. So they have left their natural behavior and came to the inhibited type of behavior. They have adapted themselves to that situation. But a natural child will generally pass through that. He will not bother about the clothes, etc. So that is the type of behavior which is desirable. But in the child, because child can be creative also, child can be imaginative also. Child is not always child behavior, which is not always bad as such. As I told you, all the three ego states are needed. It is not always that adult ego state is needed all the time. It is sometimes you have to go to the child ego state also just to make the life better. You have to go to parent state when you are saying something to you or making your child understand as such. Then you are to tell him certain things and you have to become a parent-like character, or you have to use the parent ego state in that case. So child ego state can be identified by the clues: physical experiences, showing feelings and emotions, tears, temper, laughter, downcast eyes, then tantrums, crying, shrieks, etc. So these are some of the clues which can identify whether the person is speaking from child ego state or which ego state he is using. Beside these physical clues, we have certain verbal clues also to identify whether the person is using parent, adult or child ego state or pattern of behavior. Now, when you are to identify the parent ego state, whether the person is speaking from parent ego state, then the verbal clues will be, he will be more critical in his talks, he will be more judgmental, he is more evaluative in words such as stupid, shocking, ridiculous or disgusting, etc. He may be prescriptive in his talk, he may be restrictive in his talk, such as he may be using do's and don'ts. He may be prejudicial in words such as always, never, supportive, or words like fine, okay, etc. he might be using. So these are the verbal clues from which you can identify that person is telling me or he is taking me as a child and he is speaking from his parent ego state, or this parent-like pattern of behavior is being used by the person. Adult ego state can be identified through verbal clues such as words indicating and inquiring. That is, he will be using indicative and inquiry type of behavior he is posing. He is asking questions that such as what, when, why, who, how, etc. Such like questioning, that is inquisitive type of behavior, inquiry type of behavior he might be showing, and he is taking you as a adult or other person as a adult, and this is how he is communicating. When he is speaking from child ego state and you have to identify that, then you have to take it, he might be using the expressions such as I wish I were, I would have been this, then I would have been better. Or he'll say I want to be like some emperor or something, President of India, or something like big politician or a big IAS officer or something like that. I don't know. Most of the time he may tell you I don't know. When you inquire something, his response will be I don't know, because he don't have much of information with him. I cannot do, I don't care. These may be the responses. He may say I don't care. So he may show the casual type of behavior approach to life. So, but again, this is not mutually exclusive. Again, one state and other state may be used in a healthy person, that one person can move from one ego state to other ego state. He can become child at a time, he may become other time the parent, he may be becoming adult most of the time, which is the desirable part. Now, what functions these ego states play in the communication, in the interpersonal behavior? Parent ego state sets norms of conduct, guides routine decision making. So these are the functions which the parent ego state performs. That is, it tries to make other people more moral oriented sort of things, or adhere to the norms, rules, etc. Adult ego state, or this pattern of behavior, would perform the functions like objectivity, maturity, problem solving, decision making, mediating between the parent and the child, and updating the parent and child data. So it always tries to bring you to a mature level of behavior. Child ego state, on the other hand, will be having the functions like spreads charm. It spreads charm and pleasure. That is, it makes the life much joyful as such. That's why this ego state is also needed. It doesn't mean that you are to remain always in the adult ego state. So you are to make the life charming and pleasureful or enjoyable. So you are to use this state. So this function it performs. It encourages conformity with the others. What others are saying, then it conforms. It obeys the orders or obeys other people, elders. It develops creative thinking. That creativity or divergent thinking is developed through this ego state. Then it urges to explore spontaneously. It has the urge to explore other things or new things. Spontaneously it is working for the new things. As you have seen the behavior of the child, a natural child is working like this. So these are some of the functions, major functions, which these ego states are performing. Now coming to the transactions, let me explain the transaction. Transaction, as I told you earlier also, that these are the social transactions. Social transaction means you are getting a stimulus and you are responding to that. So any individual given a stimulus, he is expected to respond, or he generally responds to that. So that way a transaction is said to have completed. That is, you give a stimulus and response comes, means one transaction is completed. But these transactions may be of different types. There are generally three types of transactions. One are complementary type of transactions. Complementary type of transactions means when one stimulus goes and a parallel stimulus response comes. Whereas in the case of other transactions, which are two more types of transactions, is cross transaction, where the stimulus is given but response doesn't come as desired. So the transactions get crossed, stimulus and response get crossed, and the response is not good, or communication stops. Further interaction stops because the response which you desired from the person, that response is not coming, and hence you will not be able to communicate further with the person. So that type of transactions are cross transactions. The third type of transactions are ulterior transactions, when the person is on the surface level is giving a message which is very open type of message, but at the depth level, in-depth level, if you see, then the message is carrying certain hidden words, hidden meaning. That is, some persons, like your boss sometimes talking to you, and he asks certain things, but his purpose of asking that is different than what he is telling you as such. you keep on responding to that, and he will try to extract out all the information which he needs from you. Sometimes you might have observed the behavior like this. Some people behave or they communicate like this, that they have certain other purpose, psychological purpose to be served. They talk in a psychological way so that other person doesn't understand it, that why he is communicating like this or what he wanted as such. You are giving a general simple reply to the questions. But in the salesman also, sometimes when they are to sell and products and convince his customer, when the product is particularly not of very good quality as such, he is to tell certain lies, exaggerate it, and tell him that this is something very fantastic, you should purchase it. Now, these are the three types of transactions: complementary, crossed, and ulterior. Now, coming to the complementary type of transactions, where the stimulus and response are parallel. Now, I have drawn some diagrams here which are showing two persons. One is one person, his three ego states: parent, adult, and child. Parent, adult, and child ego state. So, there are some examples we have used. First, let us take the example of the parent-parent transaction. One stimulus is going from one person and he is asking something from the other person and using the parent ego state, and response is also coming from the parent ego state. This is the response, this is the stimulus. Now, he asks, the person, first person asks, young people are nowadays lazy. It is the other person responds, it is a sign of the times. So one person is simply saying, these days we are seeing that many people are getting lazy, lethargic. Then the other person immediately responds, this is sign of the time. So we can't do anything, but he agrees to that, means he is also speaking from the parent ego state. Another transaction, because there will be 9 permutations and combinations, and that's why we are telling you each of the 9. So one is parent-parent, second is adult-adult. Let us take the adult-adult now. So we are taking the adult is giving a stimulus to other adult, and it is response is coming from the same state. So for example, he asks something or says something like, he seems to be worried lately. He is talking about some other person. The other person response immediately comes, why not we discuss the matter with him? Rather than criticizing someone or saying something subjectively rather than objectively, he says that why not we go to him and discuss with him rather than saying something about him. So facts will come to the surface. Child-child transaction is the third one. When the stimulus is going from the child and coming back to the child, a response is coming back to the child. Like the one person is saying from the child ego state, I shall play mummy and you the little girl. The child is saying. Now the other child says, why should I be the little girl always? That is, she is also reacting from the child ego state, and she says that always you make me play this role only, little girl's role. I'll become elder now and not play this younger's role all the time. So these are the 3 ego states. The 4th ego state, ego transaction, is the parent-adult transaction. In this, parent is talking to the or using the parent, one person is using the parent ego state, and the response is coming from the adult ego state. Now, the dialogue may be like this: have you ever seen these buses coming on right time? The adult response from the other person comes immediately. He doesn't use his parent ego state as such, and he says, sometimes some of them come on time. So his response is very matured as such, and adult behavior is showing that some of them come at the right time. We cannot just criticize all the time these people, drivers or transport people. Other ego state, ego transaction is parent-child transaction, and in this the parent ego state is used by one person and the stimulus goes to the child. He is asking, do you know where my cufflinks are? Person is asking from his wife that, do you know where my cufflinks are? Immediately the other person is using the child ego state, and the response comes, you always blame me for everything. Why don't you keep track of your own things? So this is the response, and the other person gets this type of response. So this is the child type of reaction which he got from the other person. Now another transaction is adult parent. Now adult is giving the response and parent ego state is being used by other person to giving the response. Now husband is asking from the wife, I have given up smoking these days, so please destroy all my cigarettes when you find anywhere in the house. The immediate comes the reply from wife, I shall definitely do so in future. So husband is saying from the adult, but the wife is using the parent ego state in the transaction. Another transaction is child adult. Child is giving the stimulus and other person is reacting from the adult. I am afraid I am not going to make it in the interview this time. The adult reply from the other person comes, particularly parents. So father or mother might be saying it, why not? You will surely make it, because there are few people of your knowledge and skill or experience. Another transaction is child adult. One person is giving a stimulus to the other person and he is using adult ego state and responding from that. I feel so mad these days that I want to throw this book out of the window. Now response comes from the adult, and the response is, sometimes something has made you angry, let us see what is that. So this type of transactions will be there. Another type of transaction is adult parent. Adult to parent. One person is using the adult ego state and giving a stimulus, and the other person is giving the response from the parent ego state. Salesman is saying, this sari is better, but you may not afford it. But the customer is responding, that is the one I shall buy, particularly the lady who may respond like this. So this is another type of transaction. Adult parent may be the other transaction which is used. Now one person is saying, using the adult ego state, giving the stimulus, and the response is coming from the parent, from the other person, parent ego state. Particularly a husband is saying to the wife, I am having a terrific headache, please give me a Saridon and a cup of tea. The response from the wife is, don't worry dear, please take rest, I shall be back with a cup of tea and Saridon within a minute. So this is the another transaction. So these are 9 types of transactions, permutations and combinations. If we see 9 types of complementary transactions where the response is going in one direction and the stimulus is going in one direction, response is coming from other direction, and they are both parallel. Response and stimulus both are parallel. So those transactions are complementary transactions. Viewers, so far you have seen transactional analysis. In transactional analysis, we have discussed concept and definition of transactional analysis. We have tried to highlight self-awareness through Johari window. Beside this, we have discussed various types of ego states. Child ego, parent ego and adult ego has been discussed, and they have been identified using verbal and physical clues. We have discussed functions of various ego states in this part of the film. Also, we have discussed complementary and cross transactions, 9 types of complementary transactions like child to child, parent to parent and adult to adult has also been discussed, and various other permutation and combinations of these transactions have been discussed. In the next part of the film, we are going to discuss ulterior transactions, applications of transactional analysis, psychological games and stalking.